Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 26.4.2 to the public. iOS 26.4.2 is available around the world at the same time for everyone on all iOS 26 supported devices. However, if you're running iOS 26.5 betas, you won't have an update as you're on a newer version and you would need to use a computer in order to downgrade. Now, if you're not seeing the update and you want to know how to install it, you can find it by going into your settings, going to General, and then Software Update. If you're still not seeing it, you can pull down to refresh to show it there, or go back out, back into Software Update, and you should see it here. Now, as far as the overall size, I took a screenshot of it. You can see here it came in at 771.8 megabytes on the iPhone 17 Pro and was about the same size as the other devices here, where Apple also released iPadOS 26.4.2, iOS 18.7.8, and iPadOS 18.7.8. Now, as far as what's new, let's go ahead and take a look at the build number, and then we'll talk about what's new. We can find that by going into Settings, going to General, Software Update, give it a second to load, tap on More Details, and then we can tap on the version number here. As you can see, the build number is 23E261. As far as what's new, well, there is no modem update in this version, so no changes to overall connectivity, at least with the modem itself. And when it comes to new features and changes, well, we're at a 0.3 update. So what that means is 26.4.2. Typically, we just have bug fixes and security updates, and that's what Apple shows here. This update provides bug fixes and security updates for your iPhone. Now, I really wish they would specify what bug fixes they've actually implemented, but they haven't said anything here. But there's a few things that seem to have improved. The overall speed and usability, there's less stuttering. I haven't seen any issues opening folders, things like that. It seems much smoother this time around, so maybe they're refining that. The wallpaper bug does seem to be resolved. Strangely here, you'll see it's nice and vibrant. We'll swipe home, and it stays nice and vibrant. It almost sort of fades back to vibrancy here, though, so that's something it seems like they've resolved, just like they have in 26.5. However, as far as things not resolved, well, one thing they haven't resolved in particular has to do with text to Siri. Typically, it would give you some suggestions here, and if I type the word Apple, we should have some suggestions as well. They have resolved this in 26.5. If I do the same thing, you'll see that it starts to give suggestions, and you can quickly open apps this way as well, and jump right into different things within the OS. So this is resolved with 26.5. It's still not resolved with 26.4.2. Also, another thing they haven't resolved has to do with iPad. For example, if you're using compact tabs, which they recently added, if we go in here, you'll see we have Google, Apple, and others. If I go into the extensions, so within the extensions here and maybe go to open an extension, it crashes the browser. This works with compact tabs only. It seems to crash it every single time. So again, if I go back in, go into an extension like 1Password, it crashes the browser if you're in compact tab mode. It has not been resolved in this update. So this is on that same version. So again, settings, if we go back to General and then Software Update, you'll see that we're on 26.4.2 here as well. Of course, when it comes to Apple CarPlay, it's been working great with 26.4.1 for me, but it's still an issue for some, specifically in Jeep and sometimes Mercedes-Benz. So hopefully this resolves it, but it will take a few days to notice that. And of course, we'll check back as far as bug fixes in the weekend follow-up. Now, as far as any other bug fixes, I haven't seen anything mentioned anywhere else. Apple hasn't updated their enterprise support website or anything else, so if you've noticed anything, I'd love to hear from you. However, as far as security updates, and we'll talk about battery in just a moment, but as far as security updates, Apple did update their Apple Security Release website. So on their website, if we scroll down, you'll see iOS 26.4.2 and iPadOS 26.4.2, along with the other updates with iOS 18.7.8 and iPadOS 18.7.8. If we go into it, there's only one thing listed here for notification services. You'll see it says available for, and of course that's all the devices here. The impact was notifications marked for deletion could be unexpectedly retained on the device. The description or fixing this was a logging issue was addressed with improved data redaction. And then we have the CVE number and more information here. It says information about products not manufactured by Apple, and it gives more information about the vendor and the published date as well. So this has been repaired in this update, and of course fixes that vulnerability. Now, as far as releases, iOS 26.5 is in the works, of course. We had Beta 3 this week, but Beta 4 or the release candidate could be as soon as next week. I would expect Beta 4 as we had that with the previous version with 26.4, so we could see Beta 4, then maybe a release candidate on May 4th, with a public release maybe sometime around the 11th. It could have a public release around May 4th if we get an RC, though, next Monday. Of course, we're all waiting for iOS 27. We'll see that for the first time on June 8th at WWDC 2026. And of course, hopefully we'll see iOS 27 Beta 1 that day, with betas throughout the summer, public betas in July typically, and then a public release usually around September when the iPhone 18 launches or just before. So that's what we expect as far as releases. I would not expect any major changes until iOS 27 though. If you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.4.2, absolutely. If you're on 26.4.1, it has that security update, so that's critical, as well as bug fixes. Hopefully there's more that we haven't found yet, but hopefully it resolves some issues you were having, especially battery life that we'll talk about in a moment. Of course, like I mentioned already, it's super smooth going into different folders. So far, I've yet to see any stutter here. So it's much faster. If we go to the lock screen, unlock and swipe home, you'll see things are nice and fluid. Going from page to page doesn't seem to stutter, and it looks like they may have finally fixed the stutter or the UI slowdown. So again, we'll have to wait and see, but again, even in the control center, it's nice and smooth. As far as the overall heat, so far it's staying nice and cool. I have it on both the iPhone Air and the 17 Pro, but let's go ahead and run benchmarks and see what it's like when it's about halfway through. Now both are running iOS 26.4.2, and on the iPhone 17 Pro, we're right around 36.7 degrees Celsius. On the iPhone Air, at the same point here, at their hottest point, we're at 40 degrees Celsius or so, which is around what we would expect with both devices. But typically this doesn't show how it handles heat over time, it just gives us a general idea right now. And you can see the initial benchmarks for the iPhone 17 Pro are quite good, 3,873 for single-core, 9,933 for multi-core. iPhone Air is 3,747 for single-core, and then multi-core is 9,571. If we take a look at the overall history here, I did run it twice today, so I showed you the best result with the 17 Pro. It does seem improved across the board here, so definitely an improvement, and you can feel it. All storage, let's take a look at that. So if we go into settings and then iPhone storage, we'll scroll down. We have 26.5 Beta 3 on the left, iOS 26.4.2 on the right, and you'll see it is taking up a little more storage here, but that's mostly because of Apple Intelligence. So 14.24 gigabytes for iOS, and it's very similar with the beta compared to the public release. Of course, Apple Intelligence is a little bit more, but that can go up and down. Also, system data can go up and down as needed, so unless this is really high to the point where you can't install apps, I would typically ignore it as it's cache data and more. And so that's everything with iOS 26.4.2. It's not a huge update, but an important bug fix and security update. Let me know how it's going for you in the comments below, and of course, if it was just a do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.